Bats are the second largest order of mammals after rodents, and the only mammals capable of flight. They're divided into two suborders, micro and megabats, and there are over 1,100 species of bat. Many bats are insectivores, and most of the rest are frugivores. They are present throughout most of the world except for in extremely cold regions. Now, bats are very important for their ecosystems as well, for pollinating flowers and dispersing seeds. Many tropical plants depend entirely on bats for these services. They are great for insect control and as prey for other animals. Bats are also economically useful as well, like for uses in traditional medicine to help cure things such as epilepsy in South America, night blindness in China, rheumatism, asthma, chest pain, and fever in South Asia. The echolocation of bats have also inspired technological advances in engineering as well, and the teeth of bats are used as currency on the island of Makura. Bat meat is also consumed as a source of food in Oceania, Australia, Asia, and Africa. And last but not least, one of the most popular uses of bats is for their guano, bat feces, which is used for fertilizer. Bat guano is high in nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus content, which makes it an even better fertilizer than cow manure. It's usually mined from bat caves and can be very lucrative if produced by large cave dwelling populations of bat and can be worth several $1 million each year. Even though bats are useful in a variety of different ways, bats are very dangerous to humans as they are associated with diseases. One of these diseases are caused from their bat guano, called histoplasmosis. Histoplasmosis is one of the non-viral zoonotic pathogens that bats harbor and transmit. It is a disease caused by the fungus of Histoplasma capsulatum, which is found in soil and often associated with bat guano or bird droppings. Disruption of the soil from excavation or construction can release infectious elements that are inhaled and then settle into the human lungs. Histoplasmosis can mimic colds, pneumonia, and the flu, and so causes symptoms related to these infections, such as cough, fever, shortness of breath, lack of appetite, etc. And in chronic patients, it is often confused for tuberculosis. Now, infections can range from asymptomatic to a deadly disease, but it is not contagious, which means that it is not human to human transmissible. Kind of resembles the diseases SARS and MERS, right? Well, not only do bats harbor and transmit non-viral zoonotic pathogens like histoplasmosis, but they also harbor and transmit viral zoonotic pathogens associated with high case fatality rates, such as Nipah virus, SARS, MERS, Hendra, Ebola, Marburg, and our recently just discovered SARS-CoV-2. Which makes one wonder, could people be coming into contact with contaminated bat feces and causing past and present outbreaks? Well, it's possible, which leads us to the breeding grounds. Tourism is one of the fastest growing economic sectors in the world. In 2015, people took more than 1.2 billion international trips as tourists. Bat tourism is quickly becoming popular as a way to use the revenue brought in by tourists to achieve bat conservation because bats are declining worldwide. But in doing so, it has put human health at risk of the viral zoonotic pathogens that these species harbor and transmit, such as the ones just previously discussed for bats, which is what inspired this article written in 2017. The next pandemic could be dripping on your head. Every year, thousands of people from around the world tour bat caves, such as Gomantau Cave in the Borneo rainforest in Malaysia. It is the perfect hideout for bats. Visiting places like this inspires people to want to protect tropical ecosystems and the species that live there, without recognizing the potential health risks when people and wildlife come together. Around 2014, 48 new viruses were found in this forest, including a virus related to SARS and bats that roost in this cave. These SARS-like viruses could be above your heads, dripping from the walls, even circulating through the air. Bat caves around the world have the two essential ingredients to brew up a new plague. 1. Intrusion of people into a previously hidden habitat. And 2. Viruses circulating around. Now, the claim is that the risk that any one tourist face is low. Only some bats in the cave have the virus, and only a few of the guano pellets are likely contaminated. The tourist would then have to touch the contaminated pellet and then rub his eyes or mouth to become infected, which is a long shot. Or is it? Because there are so many bat caves around the world and so many people now visiting them, eventually this is going to happen. Tourism is what helped Zika spread around the Americas and is what brought SARS to North America. So who's to say that something like this couldn't happen? Maybe it already has. In 2007, a woman from Colorado took a trip to Uganda where she visited a bat cave in the Maragombo Forest, a part of Queen Elizabeth National Park. A few days after she returned home, she got very sick. Doctors couldn't figure out what she had until 12 months later when she read about another Dutch woman who died of Marburg after visiting the same bat cave in Uganda. The World Health Organization investigated and determined that the bats carried the virus. The woman didn't know how she had contracted Marburg as she hadn't touched nor been bitten by a bat, but scientists believe she and the Dutch woman may have touched rocks covered in bat guano. Epidemiologists believe Marburg and Ebola are transmitted between humans via bodily fluids, not through airborne particles. So luckily, even though both women had been contaminated with the deadly disease and traveled back home with it, it fortunately did not spread to others. But imagine if it were something like SARS, which is spread through airborne droplets that cause more widespread human-to-human transmission. Could it possibly look something like,
guess what, bitch? Coronavirus! Coronavirus! Shit is real! Shit is getting real! Shit is real! Coronavirus! Shit is real! Shit is getting real! Shit is real! Coronavirus! Shit is real! Shit is getting real! Shit is real! Coronavirus!
Coronaviruses are any of a family of Coronaviridae of single-stranded RNA viruses that have a lipid envelope studded with club-shaped projections that causes respiratory infections such as the common cold, SARS, and MERS in birds and many mammals, including humans. Now, the other notable human diseases that are caused by RNA viruses would be things such as Ebola, rabies, polio, measles, HIV, influenza, hepatitis C, hepatitis E, and West Nile fever. Bats weren't suspected to be harboring any of these emerging infectious diseases until after the SARS outbreak of 2003, where in 2004 they discovered the evolutionary origin of SARS. Their analysis supported a mammalian like origin for the replicase protein, an avian origin for the matrix and nucleocapsid proteins, and an avian mammalian mosaic origin for the host determining spike protein. This data suggested a possible past recombination event between mammalian like and avian like parent viruses, such as influenza carried by avians, chickens, and coronaviruses carried by bats. Avian and mammalian-like RNA viruses have been circulating in humans since before the outbreak of HIV in the 1920s. 5 to be exact from my timeline, but there could be more. Now, there are 2 bat-related viruses that emerged, which would be measles in AD 1500 and rabies, 1930 BC. There was 1 avian-related virus, influenza of 1918, the Spanish flu, and 1 possible avian-related virus, polio, of 1789. Combine those with the non-viral zoonotic pathogen histoplasmosis, which occurred in 1905 before the Spanish flu outbreak and was caused by bird and bat droppings. After HIV, West Nile fever, another avian-like virus, emerged in 1937. That makes 4 viruses between each species capable of causing infectious diseases before the first human coronavirus was discovered in 1960. Human coronavirus 229E. It would be 41 more years before the next human coronavirus that causes another common cold was discovered, HCoV 0C43, which emerged in 2001. In between that time, 4 other bat-related RNA viruses emerged: Marburg of 1967, Ebola 1976, Hendra 1994, Nipah 1998. After the emergence of human CoV 0C43 in 2001, 5 more bat-related human coronaviruses emerged: SARS 2003, HCoV NL63 2004, HCoV HKU1 2005, MERS-CoV 2012, SARS-CoV-2 2019. With the evolutionary origin of SARS pointing to a recombination of viruses between avian and mammal hosts, and the history of zoonotic emerging infectious diseases present within these species, makes the likelihood that all human and mammal coronaviruses originated from bats or avians. But bats are the prime candidate pick for this theory, as they seem to harbor and transmit more infectious diseases than avians. And humans can catch these viruses by involving themselves with the wildlife in their habitats. Or could it be the other way around? Could humans have passed on viruses to mammals such as bats and then become reinfected with a new or more evolved strain of the original virus? Well, it's most definitely possible. Human coronaviruses can also grow in bat cells, suggesting that human CoVs are capable of infecting multiple mammalian hosts, potentially establishing zoonotic reverse zoonotic cycles that allows coronaviruses to maintain viral populations in multiple hosts, evolve novel recombinant viruses with viral genes derived from human and animal coronaviruses, and traffic back into human populations at a later date. Discovery of an F46 isolate recovered from lesser horseshoe bats in Hunan in 2017 makes the theory of reverse zoonotic reverse cycles a possibility, as they found out that F46 was an intermediate source for bat SARS-like coronaviruses and SARS coronaviruses, and that it was a possible recombinant of either bat SARS-like coronaviruses or SARS coronaviruses. They named two bat SARS-like coronaviruses that could have caused the recombination to occur between bats to create F46, bat SARS-like CoV RS3367, and LYRA11, both discovered in 2013. But they only list one source for a recombination of SARS coronavirus from an isolate named BJ01 that they took from a SARS patient in 2003 or 2004. So what did BJ01 recombine with to create F46? So this makes one wonder that if humans infected bats first and caused the more deadlier strains to have evolved over time, did this happen through natural occurrence? Or could bats have been injected with human coronaviruses, causing the more evolved strains of coronaviruses to arise and be released into the human population from labs? Stay tuned for episode 2.